and then converting it back into a more human readable format. So, very often the goal of reverse engineering challenges is to understand the functionalities of a given program so that you can go in deep. So, it is not limited to programs but applies to everything and anything. So let's actually dive into detail about this particular topic, reverse engineering, to have a better understanding about it. Now in computing there exists two type of processors, that is 32-bit and 64-bit. A 32-bit architecture is a memory address or other data units that are 32-bit wide, and a 64-bit is 64-bit wide. So if we look at the architecture, the only difference is that when 64-bit architecture is taken, it has an increase of storage and number of registers compared to a 32-bit architecture. That is, and also a computer with a 64-bit processor can have 64-bit or 32-bit version of an operating system installed. However, a 32-bit cannot have a 32-bit cannot have a 64-bit operating system because it won't work properly. Like it won't work at its full capacity. So we will be looking at binaries. How in how it happens in different 32-bit and 64-bit processors. So when you compile a code, what actually happens? When you compile a C program, there are basically four processes that happen: pre-processing, compilation, assembling, and linking. So let's look at each of this, what exactly each of this means. So when you run a C program, you will be given with a C file. So what happens is a C preprocessor is a program that accesses the C code with the pre-processing statements and produces a pure form of C code that contains no pre-processing statements. That is this stem.c file. The C compilers accepts this preprocessed output file from the preprocessor and produces a special kind of a file called the object file. Object file contains a machine code generated from the program, and next comes the link phase. It is implementing the linker. The linker is a process that accepts the input of the object file and the libraries to produce the final executable file that you will see in a city of competition with a reversing challenge. Now, what exactly is x86 assembly? Well, it is a language that is a collection of instructions. It's a command that instructs the processor to perform a specific action. x86 assembly language are used to produce object code for the x86 class of processors, and we will be focusing on 32-bit and 64-bit processors. You will not be knowing what these are, so we will go into detail what they are. So when you look at an high level in levels of program, you can see that there are many levels of a programming world. Well, the high level language include Python, JavaScript, Ruby and all, which you might be familiar, maybe at least Python might be familiar with you. Another one is the middle level, which is consisting of Java, C++, C hash, and low level will have the languages like C, and then only comes the assembly code, that is x86 and x64 included. So it should not be that easy for people to understand, like how we learn Python and all. So it's not that of a issue if you don't understand how exactly it works. Then only machine code and CPU hardware comes. So it will be hard, but then we can introduce you to this particular topic. So a major important part of an x86 code is registers. So what are registers? Registers are a small piece of memory that exists inside a CPU. And the x86 architecture provides 8 registers. that are shown here, each of which are 32-bit or 4 bytes long. So here you can see that there are 8 registers, and here EAX, EBX, ECX and EDX are registers which have subsections. These subsections will be introduced to you in detail after this, after next slide. The next is ESI and EDI. ESI and EDI are also general purpose registers that are often used as pointers, and they are called the source index and the destination index. Next comes the stack pointer and the base pointer, that are ESP and EBP. Now let's go in detail to these registers. So as I told, EX, EBX, ECX and EDX are some general purpose registers as we saw here. But the subsections are these, that is AX, BX, CX and DX. As you can see here, they are least significant 2 bytes, that is 16 bits register of this 32-bit register. And AH, BH, CH and DH are the most significant bytes of 16-bit registers, and AL, BL, CL and DL are the least significant bytes of this 16-bit register. So this is the subsection of these 4 registers. Now let's look into the other ones. Another one is EIP, which I didn't tell you about. EIP is actually a register which contains the address of the next instruction that you have to execute in an assembly code. Then comes EDI and ESI. EDI and ESI, as I told, are the destination and source registers. The last one is the E-flag register. E-flag is a 32-bit register used as a collection of bits representing Boolean values. So what it does is it stores the result of an operation and the state of the process. That is, it will have it will actually have ones and zeros according to what process happens. So there are basically important flags are ZF, that is zero flag, carry flag, that is CF, then SF, that is sign flag. ZF zero flag means that it set the register when this flag is set when the result of an operation is 0. Next is CF. CF is set when the result of an operation is too small or too large. Next comes SF, that is sign flag, which sets when an operation is negative. So these are some important flags from E flags. But then there are many more flags. If you go in detail to assembly language, you'll be able to come through. Now the other two are the stack pointer and the base pointer, as we talked about. So what it does is, if this is a stack, well, you know that stack is developing like this. So a base pointer will always point to the base of the stack, and the stack pointer will point to the top of the stack. So I have a question for you. So we just came across a 32-bit processor, like all the registers and all. So what is the difference when it comes to a 64-bit processor? If anyone of you know the answer, you can maybe unmute your mic and talk, or you can give it in the chat. Anyone?
Come on, guys, you can speak up. Even if you don't know, just try.
Yeah, maybe if you have issue with speaking, then you can type it in the chat box.
It's fine. Try. What do you think would be the case in 64-bit?
Yeah. Okay. So I'll then tell you what. So there is no much difference. That is, in a 64-bit version, the E, that is, we saw EAX, EBX and all. So the E is replaced with an R. So the 64-bit version of EAX is called as RAX, and the number of registers will double in number. So we'll look at so yeah, these are the different registers that you'll see in a 64-bit processor. That is, everything will be starting from R and the operations and all are the same. No much difference, as I told. Now this is an architecture of x86 64-bit processor. So what happens is a key component of this registers is multi-side access, which means that the register RAX can have its lower 32-bit as EAX, then the lower 16-bit as AX, and then the lowest 8 bits can be accessed by AL and AH. This is done because it allows for the compiler to make optimizations with boost program execution. So we just came across all the registers and all the different types of registers or whatever we just saw, but we don't know actually how to go through assembly code. You might have seen these kind of code in maybe in a CTF competition, or if you have gone through some details about an assembly language, you can see these kind of codes. So, as a beginner, it probably won't make much sense. As me, as Imran, everyone, we all started as beginners, so we might not have much idea about what it is. So, what you have to do is you have to learn each and every instruction of what actually is happening. That's the only way you can understand how it happens. I'm not guaranteeing you can understand everything, but then yeah, we can give it a try. So the first instruction of a program, an x86 program, contains two parts, that is the operand and an opcode. An opcode tells the processor what to be done. That is, it's basically like if you're adding something, then the plus sign will be some opcode. Here, add operation will be the opcode. That is what instruction you are doing. Next comes the operand. Operand is to what you are doing, the addition or subtraction or whatever, the numbers or the registers, anything. So this is the syntax of an x86 instruction. Here you can see that the move operation is the opcode here, and these two, EAX and 5, are the operands. We'll move into detail about what this exactly means in the next slides. So the first data movement instructions are as follows. So as you can see, here you can see that move EBX, EX. What does this mean actually? That is, EAX and EBX are registers as we talked. So EAX and EBX will have some value. That can be any number, any hex value, anything. So what happens here is it is moving the the value of EAX into EBX. This is also something similar, except that this is actually a hex value. 0 cross deadbeef, it is a value of a hex value, and I'm just moving this value into this register. That's what this instruction does. The next is a dword PTR. Now this is something different. So what happens is, this is an address. So this process, what it does is, the 4-byte value at this particular address is being moved to EAX. We just saw that we are moving the value to EAX, but we are moving the value in this particular address to EAX. So some similar code are these as shown here. Here you can see byte PTR, word PTR, and dword PTR are something different. So here you can see that byte PTR, what it does is it moves the 2 into the single byte at the address stored in EBX. The 2 is being moved into the single byte stored, whatever is stored in EBX. Next is word PTR. What it does is it moves the 16-bit integer representation, not just 2, but 16-bit integer representation of 2 into the 2 byte starting at the address in EBX. The last one is dword PTR EBX 2. Here 32-bit integer representation of 2 is being moved into the 4 byte address that is starting at EBX. Another one is this. The same thing is done except that the address is being calculated in this box. That is, EBX will have some value, ESI will have some value. So the whatever we need will be calculated here, and then the address whatever is provided here, whatever is inside that address will be moved to EAX. This is LEE instruction, that is load effective address. What it does is it moves whatever value is in this particular address to AX. You might have confusion of what this means. What this means is that it is EBP is a pointer, and this is actually showing us where exactly the address is, like in the base of a stack. Like if we're looking at the stack point of view, you will be familiar with stack further when we talk about it, so you don't have to worry about that. But whatever is in this particular address is being moved on to EAX.
I have a doubt.
Yeah.
In the second last one, EBX plus 8 into ESI. So are we talking about like in the stack there is this there is a EBX. Let's say it has a value 2, and there is an ESI which has a value 1. So are we talking about movements in that stack, or are we talking about the value?
No, like we are actually calculating the particular address in the system. So EBX will have something related to the address that is in your stack. Yeah. So the stack's address is being calculated here. So according to that only, a program will have values about EBX and ESI and all. So yeah, stack address is being calculated here.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, so I'll move on. Next comes the arithmetic and bitwise instruction. This is just basically an add instruction where you are adding the value in EBX. EBX will have some value and EAX will also have some value. You are adding the values in EAX and EBX and then moving it to EAX. Next is a subtraction value. SUB is subtraction value, is subtraction instruction. Here, this hex is being subtracted from whatever is in EAX, and then it is being moved on to EAX itself. Like it is the first register, so that's why it is moving to EAX. Next is the INC. INC means incrementing. And here what we are doing is whatever is in EDX is being incremented and EDX will get an incremented value. XOR is bitwise XOR. You might have heard XORing. So what this does is here you can see that EAX and EAX are being XORed. So if we look at the point of view of this particular instruction, what it actually wants is EAX is being initialized with 0. If you XOR a value with its own value, its own same number, then it will probably have a 0 value, and that's what is done here. Another one is OR. OR is you are ORing EAX and EBX and moving it on to EAX. The last one is mul. Mul means multiplication. You are multiplying the value in EAX and 0 cross F is being multiplied and we are moving it to EAX. Now let's talk about some control flow instructions. So you might have heard, if you do programming, there will be some if condition and you will go into the loop if it is true or there is an else condition and all. So the same thing is happening in a compare statement, just that you can see here there is a CMP EAX dot comma 0x10. So CMP means compare. So we are comparing EAX with whatever this value is. So there are many ways to give the continuous statement for this. That is you can see that this is JE. JE means jump if equal to. JZ also means the same thing. So jump if equal to what it does is if they are equal, then it will move into this particular LOC, means there'll be some location given. So it will move on to that location. And when that happens, the E flag that I talked about earlier will be given 1. Another one is JNE, that is jump if not equal to. If they are not equal, then it will move on to location given here. So this is JLE, that is jump if less than or equal to. Then last one is jump. Jump is, this is an unconditional statement. That is, it doesn't actually bother to look if the condition is true. It's just jumping. It's a control flow instruction. So let's see a small example in the side. So here you can see that I am moving EAX, this value into EAX. So EAX has a value of 0 cross 10. Now I am comparing EAX with 0 cross 10, 0 cross 15. So I'm comparing with 0 cross 10. So it's, you know that it's not equal, or you know the relation between them. So what exactly will happen? Which of these instruction will be triggered? Let's see. So if we go on from each of these instructions, then you can see that JL means jump if less than. Is 0 cross 15, that is EAX value less than 0 cross 10? No. So it won't go there. Then jump if equal to. They are not equal. So I don't think that will be triggered. Next is JNE, that is jump if not equal to. Jump if not equal to, what happens? Here you can see that they are not equal. So probably that must be triggered. So where will it go? The instruction will go into this side, the L3 position. So that's what happens when you do a simple jump statement. Now let's look at some stack manipulation instructions. You might have heard about the push or pop instructions if you're familiar with some basic stack operations. So what a push instruction does is that it subtracts 4 from the stack pointer to move it towards the lower memory and copies the value in whatever value we are given, EBX, onto the top of the stack. What does that mean? Now you can see a stack here. The further explanation of stack will be given later. So am just giving a fair idea about it. So here you can see that a stack have something like this, the top of the stack and the bottom of the stack. So when I'm pushing a value, what happens is whatever is in this value will be pushed on to the top of the stack, and the length of like the stack will increase downwards. The next one is pop. Pop operation is they copy the value of the top of the stack and into the EBX, and then add 4 bytes onto the stack pointer to move it towards higher memory. That is, here you can see that there is a value 10. I want to take it away. I want to pop it out. So I am taking that value and putting into EBX, but still there is a vacant space. So what we do is we do adding 4 bytes that you'll understand later, and then what happens is you just shorten the array length. So here what happens, we are just popping the value here into EBX, and there is no value in the stack. Now a call statement is something similar to what we do in other programs, that is calling call and the function you want to call. Then is the RET, that is the return statement from a function call, and then NOP, that is a no instruction, no operation. So I guess you will be somewhat familiar with what we just talked about. Somewhat you might be feeling like you know something when coming to an x86 instruction. Now we will have a short quiz. I think there is already a link provided in the chat box. If you can see, there is a Slido link given. So I want all of you to take that Slido link, and then they will ask for a code. So just given this code L120, L120 is just give that hash on Slido and then answer this particular question. So what the question is that assembly language is a high level language. Is it true or false? So when you, I'll give you probably 10 seconds. Just give the answer in Slido itself. If you have any doubt, just ask. All right. So I guess we will continue. Yeah, so everyone gave the right answer. That is, it's not a high level language. We just came across the same question. So, yeah. Another question. What are the two parts of an instruction? Uh, so, we came across the same question. I'll give you more time for this. Given the answers, the same link. Okay. Yeah. So I guess all of you are almost familiar with what I talked about. So yeah, there are only two parts, opcode and operand. Another question, what does RBP and RSP does? So we just talked about RBP and RSP, which are base pointer and stack pointer. So you can answer the question. Yeah, okay, cool. So the answer is it points to the bottom and top. Yeah, some have no clue, that's fine. That is exactly what it means is that base pointer and stack pointer are base pointer. That is base pointer, it is pointing to the bottom of the stack, and RSP is pointing to the top of the stack. Okay, now we will go across memory layout. So what is memory layout means? Like we know that memory is simply an array of bytes, each of the bytes having its own address. So when a program is being executed, an operating system allocates chunks of memory to that program. And so, as you can see, the memory is being divided into different segments called the address spaces. Uh, so these are the different address spaces that you can see: the text, data, BSS, heap, shared libraries, and stack. So how can we see this in a code? So if you are taking a simple code of an assembly language and hello world code. So here you can see that there are many sections given. So the first section here, you can see that section text is already given. So what text has? It stores the actual program that is executed. That is, when you give a program, when it is converted into assembly language, it is stored in this particular memory section. Next is the data section. Data section, it stores the initialized read or write data. As you can see, the hello world program or anything related to the input or output, everything is given at the section.data. Next is BSS section. BSS section is, it stores the uninitialized data. Uninitialized data as in, you will be probably, if you are giving a value that is int a, that means they are just declared. But when you give int a equal to 1, then that is initialized. So when you are giving a value which are not initialized, that will be stored in this particular area. Last one, this is shared library. That is, shared libraries are object code files that exist outside our program, and they are loaded during the compiling. So printf is a shared library. That is, you can see external printf, that is, it is stored outside a program. Now this part is where a stack is being built. That is, as I told, a stack have to be built downward. So when you run the program only, the stack will be filled. So this is the program area where stack is actually being built. Now, if we go into detail in an ELF, in a binary, you can see that the details are given here. Here, .txt file, .txt memory position is given the address here, and after that only comes the .data as I showed in the stack. Then comes the BSS. So actually, this is how a stack memory layout actually happens. And the last part is a stack. So stacks is the backbone of any program, as a control flow is maintained with the help of a stack. Now, the more details about a stack will be given by Simran. So you will be more familiar with what all happens in a stack and all. So I'll be exiting my screen. Yeah, Simran, share.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. So is it visible?
Not yet. Ah, yeah.
Okay.
So far, are all the concepts taken so far clear to everybody?
Yeah, because we'll be going more into deep into it. So any doubts you can ask now.
You can unmute or you can send a text in the chat. Okay.
Are there doubts?
No, I guess you can start.
Okay. So we heard a term about stack. What is stack? So every computer program that we run uses a certain region of a memory, which is called the stack, okay, to enable functions to work properly. So it is an important part of the program because this is the part where the control flow of the whole program is built. So let's see some of the features of the stack. So you know about stack data structure, right? So just like that, this also follows the LIFO concept, that last in first out. So if this is my stack and this is the bottom of my stack, and I put some values in it or something in it, so it will keep filling it up. And the first thing that if I want to remove something, then the only way I can remove is from the top of the stack. Secondly, it grows from a higher to a lower address. So this is a memory stack, and it grows from a higher address to a lower address, and it skips by 4 bytes in a 32-bit architecture. And it is used to store local variables. So while in a program, when a program is being executed, so we have local variables that are being pushed to this stack, and maybe some function arguments or some return information is stored to this. So let's see. So you heard the term EBP and ESP register. So what are they? So if this is your stack, then they are just two registers that point to the top and bottom of the stack. So they help maintain the stack because you need to keep a control of your stack as to where it's growing. So ESP will always point to the top of the stack, whatever that may be, but EBP will always be fixed to the base of the stack. Okay, so and inside your program there are stack frames. Okay, so what are stack frames? So you have a main function, and a stack is built for that particular main. So inside the main you are calling some functions. So for each of those functions, a separate stack frame is built inside that main function. Okay, so we'll see more into that. So first let's look into 32-bit layout. So how does a stack of a 32-bit program looks? So I have an EBP. Suppose my base pointer is here, and and these are all addresses. Okay, so I want to reference a value in this particular address. So how do I do that in reference to EBP? So since it's a 32-bit layout, it will have 4 bytes. So if I want to reference this, I'll just say EBP plus 0x4. And why is there a plus? So it's this EBP is here, and we are pointing to we are referring to this memory which is above EBP towards higher address. So we'll just call it EBP plus 0x4. And similarly, for something that is below EBP, it's EBP minus 0x4. And then similarly EBP minus 0x8 as we go down. So what do you think happens in a 64-bit program? So I told you that in 32 we have EBP registers and it increments by 0x4. So what do you think happens in a 64-bit program? Namita just talked about registers. So what do you think happens there? So you can put some what you think would happen in a what changes would you see in this stack in a 64-bit program. Anyone?
First of all, it would be RBP in a
Yeah,
64 program.
yeah, that's correct. What else do you think would happen?
The increment of 4 might change to some other value. Like
Okay,
each stack might not be that. I'm not sure.
okay, yeah, okay. So that's absolutely correct. So in 64-bit layout, we'll have RBPs instead of EBPs. And since it's a 64-bit, so what is 64-bit? It is 8 bytes, right? So it will increment using 8 byte values. Okay, so that's the value that it increments by. So let's see into what is a so we have a function, we have a program. Okay, so this is the main of it, and it has three variables. Two are initialized, and then a function is being called, and some return value is being stored here, and then it's being just printed out. So what would it look like in assembly? So this is what it would look like in assembly program. So we'll go more into that and see what each of this does. Similarly to this, okay, so if I'm calling this sum function, so what happens in the sum function? So sum is basically taking those two arguments and it's adding them and returning the value back to the main function. And this is the assembly for that. So now we need to, okay, so from main to sum, so what difference would it come? So we have a assembly for main. So where does this part go? Okay, so where does this fit in this function? So within the main stack, okay, so we have a stack which will take care of this main, and inside that we'll have the stack frame for this particular function that is built just to execute this, and then it will be destroyed. And to build such stacks, we have a certain thing like function prologue and epilogue, certain instructions that help in building and destroying of this function. So we'll see so now we'll see like what happens when a function is called and how are arguments passed to them and how stack is affected by it, and how those functions are how those arguments are taken inside the function. Okay, so before that, we need to see that what it would, how arguments are passed in a function in 32-bit and 64-bit. So in a 32-bit, so the arguments are pushed onto the stack. So Namita talked about that we push certain values on top of the stack. So we have a push instruction for that. So when we are passing some variables to a function, we directly push it on top of the stack. Whereas in 64-bit, we move it. There are certain registers for that. RD and RSI are the basic ones that we used. But if we have more number of arguments, then yeah, RDX, RCX, R8, and R9. And if you have even more arguments, we just push it on the stack. So let's see. So this is our. So what happens? Before executing okay, so what happens, this is your main. Okay, so this is the same main that we used before, and these are the same instructions. So something is happening here, we'll see what this is, and then some values are being moved here and there, and some push are there. So so we'll see what is happening. So we saw this 5 and 2 in the main function. These are two initialized variables when you see it in the program, C program. So in assembly, it is being passed to a moved to a register. So what some EBP minus 0x14 register and EBP minus 0x10 register. So and then push is happening. So we are pushing these values onto the stack. So this is your stack, and we have our EBP and ESB, and these two instructions are just executed. So first the value in D word EBP minus 0x10 will be pushed onto the stack, and then the value in this EBP minus 0x14 will be pushed to the stack. and then a function call is happening to the sum. Okay, so what you need to remember is that you see that in this function you see that sum x comma y. So the first argument is 5 and the second argument is 2. But what happens here, that the first, okay, so how will this function see these arguments? And so I told you that 32-bit, and we push it on top of the stack, the arguments to a function. So how will they be accessed? So first, it's accessed in reverse order. So first argument for it will be this, what's pushed here, and then this. So what is there in 0x145, and then what is there in 0x102. So that's how arguments are pushed. Then let's see. Then we are calling this calling this sum. So what does the call instruction do? It basically does two things. First, it pushes the address of the next instruction. So this is the next instruction to it. So it pushes this value on top of the stack. Why will it push it? So we'll call some, when we are in main, we are calling some function. It goes to that function, executes it, and comes back here. So how does it know where to come back to? So this EIP stores uh, the address of the next instruction. So we store it on top of the stack so that later we can get it back and come back to main. And the next thing it modifies this instruction pointer to point to the start of this sum function. Okay, so now our EIP will be on this sum function, start of sum function. So when we are writing a function, so it contains basically three parts. One is something called a setting up of the stack called function prologue. Then we have our main body of the program where all the stack is used to execute and store local variables. And then there is a cleanup or function epilogue. So it basically helps in destroying the stack that we just built for this particular function. Okay, so let's see what function prologue is. So we have three instructions in this, and we saw here that okay, we saved our return address, and then when we executed this three functions, so this built. So what happens? We are first pushing EBP on top of the stack. So EBP will contain right now the mains EBP address, right? Because that's what EBP had, and we have to save this because once we go back to the main function, we'll need it to point it to the way it was before the function was called. So we save this EBP by pushing EBP, and then we move EBP. Then we'll have a ESP which will point to EBP because we are moving ESP to EBP. So it will point here itself, and then when we do this, a stack frame is built. What a stack frame is called built. So once it is built, so now we can do our main program. So we are first just allotting some space in the stack so that we can use store some variables or program execution instructions. So let's see. So function arguments. So we pass some function arguments to it, right? That 5 and 2 were passed to this function sum. So how are they accessed? So inside the function, so when you move on to a stack frame, so this is a completely different from the main stack frame. So it's inside it, and anything related to that main is not stored into this. This is a completely new stack frame just for this function. So how will we get the function arguments that was stored on that stack? So we have, so we see some dword pointer EBP plus 0x8 being passed to some EDX. So our EBP is here, right? We saved it here. Okay. So how will we access? So EBP plus 0x will point to some address above it, right? Because we saw that stack grows from higher address to lower address. So it has some higher address here and some lower address here. So EBP plus 0x8 will point to something above it. Okay. And what will be, and then again we have EBP plus 0xC. So how the arguments were passed? First the 4 was pushed, then the 5 was pushed. So how will it access? First the 5 is accessed and then the 4 is taken and stored in EDX and EAX respectively. So using EBP plus, using EBP as a reference, we are taking the function arguments. And then what happens? So we basically then, someone has a doubt? Okay. Then, yeah, basically we are just adding these two variables and storing in EAX. So the rest of the program generally executes and the space taken by local variables of this function sum. So now our program has been executed. What comes next? Now we want to go back to the main function. So how do we do that? So before that, so whatever we want to return to the main, that is always stored in EAX variable. So the return value of a function is always stored into EAX. Okay, then we'll come to something called function epilogue. So these last three instructions are for function epilogue. So what do they do? It from here to here. So we have our ESP and it's going back to EBP, and then we are popping EBP. So once we pop EBP, so whatever was on this value, what does pop instruction do? It basically pops the value on top of the stack. So when we did ESP comma EBP, the ESP came here and we popped this value and stored it into EBP, and then we called ret. So what does ret do? It basically is similar to pop EIP. And what is pop EIP? It just saves the return address into EIP. It pops it and saves it into EIP. So we come back to, so we have our EIP and it has the return address of the next instruction that we had in main after the call, right? So that's what EIP will contain. And then all of this stack is that was built was destroyed, and it was like it was never there, right? But just we have the return value. So where is it? So after we come back to main, we see, okay, so after we come back to main, we have the same stack as before, right? Before the function was called. So now we see here that some EAX is being passed into some EBP minus 0xc. So what does EAX contain? We saw in the last in the sum function that the value of the sum was stored in 7, and that was the return value. Okay, and that is always in EAX. So now I executed this call function, and this is a GDB of that. So we have our sum being called, and then I see, after coming back to the main, I see what is there in EAX register. So I see, okay, there is 7. So that is the return value that I got, that is in the EAX register. And then this is the rest of the function of main. So what does it do? It just takes EAX and put it into some variable, some memory, into EBP minus 0xc, and we are just pushing it, and then we are pushing one more thing on it, and then we are calling printf. So what do you think? Okay, so we know that EX container 7 and it is being pushed to this. So what do you think one more thing that is being pushed here? What do you think this is? And then we are calling printf. So what do you think this EAX has? Can someone answer? Any guess? Okay, I'll give you a hint. So in your C program, you call, when you have your printf call, so you do printf and then you pass some arguments to it. So what is the first argument that you pass to it? Anyone?
The format in which the output has to come.
Yeah, exactly. So this EBX minus this at this address, there must be the format specifier stored. So we'll have a percentage %d may be stored here, and that is the first argument. So always the arguments are taken in reverse order of the call. So when printf is called here, so the first argument it takes is this argument, and that is your format specifier, and this the return value that we got. So when we run your program, we get your output as 7. So it's printing that. Okay, so what did we see? Just a brief summary. So we saw that a stack, we had a stack and we had a stack bottom, and then we pushed some arguments onto it, and after pushing some arguments, we stored a return address of where we want to come back to, and then we went into a function and we built a stack frame of that particular function, and we had our save dbp, and then we executed our instructions, and then here is our stack top. So this is basically what we saw in the few slides back. So I hope you are still with me and still interested. So let's see hello world in assembly. So we have a program here, a simple hello world program. So as we talked about memory layout, we have a data section where a string hello world is initialized in this variable, and then we have our external printf. So we are calling printf is your shared library, which is being called here as it's not part of this whole program, and it's being called. And then we have your text section, which contains your actual code. So what is happening? So we saw this push EBP and move EBP comma ESP. So what does this instruction do? It builds your stack. That's what called function prologue. That's what we saw just before. And then we are pushing some hello world on top of the stack. So what hello world has? This has your string, this hello world, and then we are calling printf. So what it will do, it will just print this string, and then here we have your function epilogue, which destroys this function frame. Okay, so how do we run it? So you just need a NASM assembler. So it will first assemble this, and then a GCC to compile this program, and then you have your run instructions to assemble and then to compile. So let's see how to assemble, so how to run it. Yeah, here in it out.
Why why do we add ESP4 at the end of that after the conversion? Once
I
again.
can't hear you, your voice. Could you write it in the chat?
Okay.
Okay, 1 second, I'll just share. Okay, till stack, is it okay, or do you need me to explain anything else again? Mm, let's just see. Okay, so we have some questions, so I answer those first. Okay, so doesn't move EBP comma ESP override the value of EBP? So we pushed EBP before, right? So before doing move EBP comma ESP, we pushed it on the stack. Yeah, that's what Sandra said. Why is add ESP comma 4 written after the call function? Where? Okay, I think Sandra Didi will answer that. Yeah. Okay, in Hello World program. Okay, so add ESP comma 4 is basically it is basically making it go back a little upward. So when we do add ESP comma 4, so this hello world is this instruction gets okay, so you can't see that. Okay, so So ESP comma 4, basically it will just move the stack back up a little, right? So just before destroying it, we just removed that hello world string from the stack. That's all we did in that. So you can remove it, it would still work. Okay, so let's see the assembly. Okay, so you have your sudo apt install in NASM GCC multilib. You can try it with me if you want. It's a simple program, and then we run it. So basically, I assemble it first. And then compiling it. So hello.o is the object file that we got from after assembling it. And then we just name it up to us. And then we just call hello. And we get your hello world printed out. Okay, so that's all in this. Going back to the slides. Okay, so now we'll have some discussion or maybe some. So we saw this. Then I need you all to do this. So what do you think will be the output of this? So we are starting from here, this push 2, and then what do you think when you go here, which jump address will it take? So will it go to 88, which is your good, or 80, which is your not good? So what do you think is happening here? So I need an answer in the chat or Maiko. Or if you have any doubts, we'll solve it. First, what do you think? Take your time. I'll wait a few minutes. It's okay. Even if you are not sure, just type it out. We'll discuss it. Anyone? Are you trying? At least say you're trying. Okay, so we have one response. Good. Okay. Anyone else wants to give out their response? Okay, we have one not good. Anyone else? Okay. Okay, not good. Now I'm unsure of my answer, but let's see. Okay, so anyone else trying, or should we move on to the solution? Okay, so according to me, it should say good. So let's see how. Okay, so we have your, we start from here. We are pushing 2 on the stack. So we have 2. Then we are pushing 3 on the stack. And then we are calling this function. So when we call this function, you save your EIP, and then and then you go to this function and you save your EBP. Okay, so once you do that, then it's let's go here. So then doing EBP plus 0x8 and then EBP plus 0x6. So EBP plus 0x8, what will be EBP plus 0x8? So your EBP is here, and so after incrementing by 4, so EBP plus 0x8 should point to the first value. Okay, and then you have your EBP plus 0xc. So that is plus 4 to 0x8. So it should go here. So first 2 was pushed, then 3 was pushed. So how it's accessing? First 3 and then 2. And then we see that, okay, EX has 3 because EBP plus 0x8 is being pushed, and EBP plus 0xC has your 2, and then it's a basic subtraction, EX comma EDX. So that will give you EX has 3, EDX is 2. So EX will have 3 minus 2, 1. And since, okay, compare 1 to 2. Okay, so if jump if less than, so if EX is less than 2, it should move to 88, which is your good. Okay. So counter argument. Do I need to explain it again? Anything? Okay, so sub ESP comma 0x10 is just allocating space in the stack. It does not hinder with this right now because EBP is fixed. ESP just moves your stack a little downwards, right? So it is just allocating some space on the stack that can be used during the function if there was a further function. But it is not hindering. Jump is like an else statement. Yeah, kind of. Yes. So if jump if less than, so if this doesn't execute, if jump less than, so suppose it is greater than, so it won't go here, and it basically will have to go to not good because it's an unconditional jump. So it's like an else statement. Yes. Okay. So let's move to another small assembly program. So who will solve this? Some of you might already know, but okay. So what do you think is the output? So I have this EX register and this is being executed. So what do you think once it reaches this end, what will the EX register have at this point? Answers, come on. Anyone? It's okay, try. It need not be right. Yes, hint. Byte pointer takes 1 byte at a time. So what is there in EBX? Okay, so what is there in EBX? This address. And what is there at this address? Something. Then if you are taking byte by byte of this string, what is happening in the loop? JZ is your JE kind of like jump if equal kind of statement. YOLO swag. No, I am just want to know. So, what does EX has? It's like a counter, right? So, what do you think?
is it eight? Uh,
Yeah, someone wants to say anything? Come on, guys, one more minute. Okay, we have one answer, 8. Who else?
yeah, is it eight?
Yeah, we'll get to that. Okay, your answer is 8 too. Anyone else? Okay, let's go to the solution then. So what do we see here? Okay, so we at this address 624, we have a string YOLO swag. Okay, and then we are moving this address to EBX. So it's kind of working like a pointer, if you can see. So EBX points to YOLO swag, and then we have a counter EAX, and we are putting 0 in it. So EX right now has 0, and then this we go here into this. So we see that okay, some byte pointer EBX. So EBX contains this address and it's pointing to the byte. So it will take first byte from here, and then it's moving it into CL, and then it's comparing CL to 0. Okay, so we know if there is Y in CL, so Y is not equal to 0, right? So as we check by ASCII, so ASCII is not equal to 0, and since it's not equal to 0, so we'll go here instead of going here because it's not equal. So this works like a jump if equal statement. Then we increment EX, so our EX become 1 here, and then we increment EBX. So once we increment EBX, so it will point to O, right? Because we are incrementing byte by byte, so it will point to O, and then it's an unconditional loop, so it will go back to the Sloopy, and again we are taking that byte. So when we incremented EBX, so this address got incremented by 1. So at once it got incremented, so now when we do byte pointer of that, we'll get O, and then we do this again. So jump if equal, and then if it's not, then EX. So till when will it go? It will go till null. So once it encounters this null, once null comes in this CL, and then it will just go to jump if equal to n. So it will just go to n. So at this point, what will be the value in EX? It will basically be the string length of the string until here. So it's 8. Okay. Yeah, increment EBX will increase the address, and so it will point to the next O. Okay, let's debug. So what is debugging? So debugging is basically, so okay, so debugging is basically finding and resolving bugs within a program and software. So when you write a program and you are getting some errors, so you want to know where the errors are. So people use some tools like GDB, which are really good at this. So find bugs in the program. So what does it do? So it basically helps you examine the program step by step. So it lets you enter into the program and see what is there in it, and how is it working. So it lets you set breakpoints at some positions, and it basically helps in, it's a very good reverse engineering tool. So we have some of the GDB commands. So we'll see all of these GDB commands now. Okay, so we have a new number of GDB commands. So let's take a program and do it. Okay, so okay, so we'll just take a random executable file, and we'll just do open up GDB. It's a pre-installed, should be a pre-installed in Linux, so you can check that out. Okay. So we have a file that I put in, and then if I do, okay, I want to see the disassembly or the instructions in the file. So if I do disass main, so I have these instructions, but if you see that, okay, you are not really familiar with these kind of, because it has some percentage sign that you didn't see before. So what you were actually seeing till now are the Intel syntax. So this is AT&T syntax. So it's there by default. So you change it to Intel syntax. So how do we do that? So to see it in a more readable, or the one that you are more familiarized with, we just set it to disassembly mode. Okay, and then we just disassemble the main again. So you see now it's readable a little more than before, right? And then we run it. Okay, suppose so we enter something. So we don't know the password, so we just enter anything. Okay, so once we enter the we entered something, we don't know the password, right? So we just put it gave some output. So let's see what other command. So R is for run. Okay, so now I want to see what happens at some. I'll Okay, so I want to see what is happening at some particular point. So I see a putS statement here. I want to know, it's a familiar function, right? PutS in C, you use it. So I want to see. I'll just move. I'll set a breakpoint here. So how to set a breakpoint? So I'll just copy the address, and I'll do B star, and I'll put the address here, and then we set a breakpoint at this point, and now I run the program. So what will happen? It will execute the program till this point, and it will come to a halt here. Okay, so yeah, it executed till here. And what did this putS do? I just put a breakpoint just after this. Okay, so what did putS do? So we saw an instruction at the starting, right? So that basically put it it basically had a string here somewhere, and it put it in here. So what did it have actually? So so that must be the string that uh, was pushed onto this putS, and then it printed it out here. Okay, then to see what was supposed there in this instruction. So I see a push of EAX, right? So this must be the argument to this putS. So, and into this EAX we loaded this, right? So let's just see what is there in this. So how to see? I do X slash. So X is basically to examine some memory. So we know this is a memory space. And if I do S, so it means that it will print out a string. And I'll paste the address, and we see, okay, so this place had this string, enter the password, that got printed out. So next, okay, I am at this point in my execution. Okay, so okay, I am at this point. Now I want to go somewhere else. Okay, so if I want to just execute one more function and stop, then what do? I do Ni. So if I do Ni, so it will move, it says it moves to this 60F in main, 604 in main. So it just executes one more statement and comes to a halt here. Okay, now I want to see now I want to go somewhere here, like I'll compare something, some EBP minus 0x something. It's comparing, there is some compare statement. So I'll just set up, I want to set a breakpoint here. So I set a breakpoint here, and I move to this breakpoint 2. So what happens here? I want to see what is there in the registers right now. So I do IR. So we see that, okay, these are the values in the register at this point. Okay, so I want to see what is there in EBP minus. I want to see, like, what print out. This is basically what a print instruction does. So you can print out these registers too by uh, P, and this will give you out 20. So it basically is the same as here. So these are few of the instructions. So Now I want to, after setting a breakpoint, like I want to continue. I want to continue and go to some other. So I did continue, and it's asking for some input. Okay. So here we had our execution till here, and then we see a scanf statement, right? So there must be some input that we need. So I just give something. I don't know what it's asking for. And it reaches another breakpoint here that I set. So it's currently at this position and it's comparing it to something. So these are some of the, so what does continue does? It moves till the next, it encounters the next breakpoint next or the program ends. So these are some of the instructions that you can use. Okay, so let's see. Before that, okay. So this is okay. Okay. Okay, so let's just go here. So you saw that, okay, you got an idea of how GDB works, and you saw a lot of assembly today. So I'm pretty sure you must be a little tired of assembly and how everything is going. So how to make this better? So like, so it's like a trick question that you can't be really you can't really get tired, because you will see this if you are going to reverse engineer any program. So there is a tool called Ghidra. It's kind of a decompiler. So what is a decompiler? It basically tries to make the source code back from the given executable. So when you are given an executable or an ELF file, which is like your, after a program is compiled, that particular file that you get, that is your executable. So it, using that executable, it'll try to make the source code back, or a pseudo code kind of thing. And it's like a really helpful tool to debug large programs, and it will make your debugging process much easier. So here is a link that you can use for Ghidra, and it will help you solve a lot of CTF challenges. So, okay, so there are some more tools like Ghidra and IDA and Radar. So, GDB was like a debugger. So, you could step into the program and see a lot of things. But then you have IDA and Ghidra that will give you a decompilation of that same program. So, you can check those out. And now, yeah, so that's about it. So, you can give your questions. Okay, yeah. Any questions?